Hey folks, hello. Welcome to another House Coach Chat number 67. It is Thursday. It's been a very long time since I made a video on a Thursday, but here we are. Kind of chilly outside, beautiful blue sky. In fact, my office is a little brighter because of the sky outside. And yes, it's kind of nice and all that wonderful stuff. We've had a crazy week in the news and everything else. And as the dude Justice Truth, as I like to call myself here, to share some dialogue and have a laugh and get serious. Right? The world is crazy, and I like to remind everybody that you truly need to read more. And I'm only going to say this as an example to start off my guest rant, however you want to call it. I've been listening to some U.S. media discussing things with the Vice President of the United States, journalists who are being paid a salary while I do things for free and read and research, are bluntly asking how the ICE today, for example, arrested a 5-year-old child and detained him. They're asking the vice president this, and the vice president responds that that's not exactly how it went. The father, who was an illegal alien, ran away and left his 5-year-old child in the cold of Minnesota. Minnesota's cold, folks. It is, just like Canada at the moment. He left his child. You can't make this stuff up. And JD replies back, well, as a parent of a 5-year-old, I'm greatly concerned what's going on. It's an illegal alien that they tried to apprehend with the child. He ran away and left his child alone. We kept the kid warm. Right? I mean, just some of the idiocy that we've been seeing from our media, especially our mainstream media, asking dumb, asinine questions without actually doing any kind of research. Because these reporters are doing essentially what everybody else is doing, is following clickbait accounts that only show you a small segment of what's going on and asking you to be outraged about it. I mean, it is so funny. Like all these people protesting ICE at the moment. I know I shouldn't really be talking about an American thing, but I am. I am Canadian, but I peek over the fence just like the good old dude in Home Improvement. Remember Tim the Tool Man Taylor? Well, I am like that old guy peeking over the fence, always inquiring on what's going on south of the border, so to speak, because they are our best and biggest ally we have ever had in the history of our country. And I'm really flabbergasted at the level of people that only assume or listen to a select few people and think they know the current state of affairs in our world. Yes, folks, you just really can't make it up. There are people defrauding in a government and taxpayers of money, and people are out there protesting this and saying, how dare you go after these people? These people are good people. And yet, where are the children in these daycare centers? Where are they? Right? I mean, you can't make it up. You just literally can't. I mean, my goodness, I mean, if you haven't followed the news on that, I highly recommend you go find a guy named Nick Shirley and listen to what he has to say, because the fraud is through the roof. In fact, I just told my lovely wife earlier this morning that there's even problems in Michigan where the great Governor Whitmer, I believe that's her, Gretchen Whitmer or Whitmar, however you want to say it, she personally invited a person basically from Africa who also started a daycare. You can't make it up. And defrauded the state of Michigan of $1.4 million. You don't think this stuff is kind of going on in Canada? I mean, really, it's amazing. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of good scams going on. In fact, I know the likes of people like Andy Lee, Moose on the Loose. These are people that I follow on X. They are independent journalists. And I'm telling you right now, I think more of these boomers that I know, the old folks who rely on CBC, the radio, Global, all those asshats who are paid to lie now because they got their silver. They are a literal walking Judas press, like Judas of the old, who kissed Jesus on the cheek and sold him for 30 pieces of silver. That is the current state of our media. mainstream media. I mean, get this, folks. I know I'm going to rant, I'm going to rumble, but get this. There's an event being held in Calgary. That is the Conservative Leadership Party thing, I believe, at the 26th of January. It's coming up in a few days. Well, it is a pricey event. Not all of us can attend or afford $2,000 to sit at these tables. And there's probably other prices, but that's the price I saw. I'm like, wow, power and influence, right, folks? If you got money, you can make things move. Well, I got a voice and I'm hoping to make things move, and that's waking you up, people. And yes, we need to read more, do more research, and the world is chaotic. Yes, it is. We are bombarded with so much information that it just glazes over our eyes, right? It just does, and it's amazing. It's like, yesterday or the day before now. Yeah, I think it was the day before. I listened to Carney's 15-minute speech. I would say this of Mark Carney's speech. It is the best speech I have ever heard him give without uttering He does a lot of that in his press conferences. But, he's reading from a teleprompter, and kudos to him for speaking that way. But I do have a problem with his speech. It's just words, just like everything he's done since the start of his coronation of being the Prime Minister of Canada, when Justin Trudeau stepped down and he kicked out a couple of East Indians from leadership races, kicked another person out for their seat so he can have a safe space to be, and the media just glorifies him. I mean, Rosie Barton, I know a couple videos ago I called her O'Donnell. I apologize, Rosie Barton, but I'm just doing this as a hobby, trying to work on my thing, like speech and everything else, and just to get the word out there. But yes, our media is just so galvanized around Carney. He is the leader we need. Everything else, but what has he actually done besides announce projects that have already been approved and everything else? Why is it that he moved Brookfield to the States? Why is it that almost 90% of his own personal investments are with the United States? And yet he's turning around and telling us that we will be our own best customer. We have the second best end of the deal, or the second best deal with the United States currently under Kuzma, the free trade agreement. Mexico is slightly better. How do I know this? Harold Lutnick and a few other pundits and stuff like that from the American government. I don't hear that from the Canadian government. I hear that we are going after the Americans with tariffs and everything else against Kuzma, and nothing of like those ilks came from the American government. Trump spoke a lot, folks, and listen very carefully. If you do not notice this pattern, he speaks big things, announces big things such as Greenland, and we will get to Greenland a little later and stuff like that, other things, and he ends up winning, folks. How does he do it? Well, simply, he is like a magician playing 4D chess. I am not an Orange Man bad, huge fan. Up and down, I've been with this fellow. I never watched The Apprentice. I will say I'm very happy he is the American president. Sometimes you do need somebody to ruffle the feathers of the world, so to speak. And yes, like Carney's speech we heard at Davos, I hope you listened to his speech because it really was a very good speech. Now, I guess the night before, Mr. Trump was supposed to go to Davos. He is late. Why is he late? Because apparently the Air Force One had electrical issues. They turned it back around, folks. Now, keep in mind, this is in the evening. He flies to Davos, already 3 hours late, and I love the media for this one. There was originally supposed to be a whole whack of people waiting for Trump at the tarmac in Davos, but because the plane was delayed, they took down the whole ceremonial thing because he's not going to be arriving there. They don't know exactly when he's going to be there because they got to jump planes, switch planes, do that blah, 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 right? So he arrived there, and then what did some people in the press do? Look at the reception that Donald Trump got. There was nobody there to greet him. Well, his plane was late, things happen, and you move on, right, folks? But the media is portraying it like Donald Trump is persona non grata. Well, you know what, folks? You've heard of the Board of Peace, so to speak, where there's going to be a bunch of world leaders that are basically going to sit at the table and decide how the world will be peaceful. I don't know a whole lot more about it other than Putin and a few other countries are involved. France was told no because, according to Trump, Macron's going to be gone soon. And I can see that happening because of the stuff that I have seen going on in France. I don't trust my mainstream media because they don't show you what's going on around the world if it affects the narrative that they're trying to give, such as the Iranian stuff that is going on and the protest over there. It took our media in Canada over a week to actually acknowledge that there is an uprising over there. That's a story for another day as well. But to the people of Iran, and I forgot to mention my scone like I usually do in the beginning of the show. Anyway, that scone is good for the people of Iran and all that. Yes. And now to Trump's speech, folks. He spoke for 2 hours. I listened to it all. I did other things while I listened, just didn't sit there and listen and played crosswords or whatever, but I listened to it. In fact, I was on the treadmill while I listened to it. And he had a lot to say. Now, Carney's speech was talking about how middle powers can become better at trying to be more involved in the world by picking on the bullies. Carney was insinuating that America is the bad, bad country, and they're being bullies and stuff. If you cut through the clutter and everything else, like I mentioned before about Trump 4D chess and being a magician, whatever, that don't really matter. But Carney was taking pot shots at Donald Trump without actually saying Donald Trump. During Trump's speech, he called out Mark by name, saying how ungrateful he is. Same with what he did with Denmark regarding Greenland. There's a whole history on Greenland, America, World War II, before that even, and the likes how Alaska was purchased, like how the little Virgin Island that they basically bought from Denmark in 1917, I believe. Greenland has always been wanted by America. When Germany took over Denmark in 6 hours, folks, America went to Greenland and stationed troops there. They were not involved with the war yet, but out of concern for the people of Denmark and the expansion of Adolf Hitler into Greenland, they were proactive in its putting troops and bases on Greenland. I hope people who like watching my show will catch that, because we've had conversations where you think you knew a little bit more, but cut me off. Ha ha! Take that. Yes, I know I'm laughing because I'm actually joking with my mom here. Anyway, love you, Mom. But please do more reading. I know I do a lot and all that stuff, but don't think that you watch some lady show that's over in Ontario that they have all the right answers. It's like the American version of The View. You know, horrible, horrible liberal programming that doesn't tell you the whole truth, right? Trump's speech was long-winded, yes, and there's things in there that blows my mind, because what woke the world up, especially the nemesis of the free world, which is China, essentially Russia, and all that. They noticed that the Americans did something holy smoly cow. They kidnapped a president from a fortified position in his own country and brought him home. Now, I know I mentioned in a video earlier, the last video, in fact, that you should go look up a video on how they did that raid. Honest to God. Go to YouTube, search Maduro raid breakdown. That's all you got to do. Just type it in the search bar. Maduro raid breakdown. You'll probably have a whole list of videos that you can listen in on. If it's one of your favorite podcasts, go give it a listen to. Never heard of them? Go give it a listen to, because the American technology for warfare, as Trump stated, in his address to the World Economic Forum is that I'm not even allowed to discuss a lot of the things that we currently have. Really? Oh, and what happened to the Russian air defenses? What happened to the Chinese air defenses that said, we stopped stealth, we stopped the stealth? Well, they stopped fuck all, folks, because they were shut down. And enough of that little Mandura raid and stuff like that. But to get back to Trump's speech, it woke up the world, the likes of China, the likes of Russia, to say, holy shit. Now tell me exactly why is Putin now on the board of peace? Probably because he doesn't want to get kidnapped in a very similar fashion. Because remember, folks, the same system that Venezuela had, Russia has, all surrounding Moscow. And if they completely shut down the air defenses without even a shot being fired, one missile basically landed 20 feet from the anti-missile or anti-aircraft gun and fell near the people that tried to launch it in Venezuela, Caracas. Or how are we, Caracas? I hope I said that name right for that lovely city in Venezuela. But folks, yes, it was an amazing, incredible speech, how Trump speaks and everything else, because he's reminding the world, like Henry Lutnick did the other day, where would the world be if there was no America? We speak in German or Japanese, folks, and that is the truth. There's more to the story. Yes, Canadians were valiant, heroic fighters, but guess what? Us Canadians didn't exactly have the numbers to try and truly persuade the war or the means of production as the United States. Now, to get back at Trump's speech again, because this is very important, because I'm going to elaborate a little bit on why he wants everything to come back. And it's also another reason, there's another name I want you to remember, and this person's name is Palmer Luckey. He is a genius, folks, a huge smart brain guy that is working for the American government. Thank this dude for doing it. I again will say Palmer Luckey is the name. Anadril Industries, it's named after the sword from Lord of the Rings that Aragorn had. I hope I said that name correctly. Forgive me if I screwed up. Let me know in the comment section. Like and subscribe, folks. I'm supposed to say these things while I'm on my YouTube feed here. And yes, folks, this gentleman is transforming warfare as we speak. And I highly, highly suspect that his technology was used in Venezuela. And you better thank your lucky stars we have this brainchild. He created Oculus and a whole host of other systems. Oculus is a gaming system where you wear the glasses and you fight, I haven't tried it yet. I really want to. One day I will. But yes, that raid on Venezuela woke up the likes of China. It woke up the likes of Russia, and Putin's now joining the board of peace. Make that make sense, folks? I don't know the whole story of the board of peace. I will dive down that and hopefully tell you a little bit on that later in an episode down the road. But yes, Trump's speech and all that woke up our adversaries, because now they're pretty much on notice. And for all of us that are fearful that China is a superpower willing to take over the world, and Carney wants to line up with China, well, I say it's a huge and big mistake. The trade things that we have going on are only good till the end of the year. So 11 months from now, China may say, nope, we don't like this. And folks, for all the countries that I have seen around the world that have tried to benefit from China and trying to have a cooperative dialogue or growth together, it has never really happened that way. Because once a country misses a payment, China wants its pound of flesh. Yes, China, in my view, and I am a person that has been talking about China with my friends and family well before last century, when I read a book about China and how it's going to rise. And yes, China rose. Yes, it did, folks. And I want to talk about the Chinese ambassador to the World Economic Forum and what he stated. He wants to see more people aligned with their way of life, with their thinking, under their protection, and everything else. and they have never done any atrocities in the world. Well, folks, they've invaded Vietnam. They took over Hong Kong quite violently. Despite how it was supposed to go, they lied and negated all the promises that they gave the United Kingdom government on Hong Kong remaining autonomous to the mainland China. They constantly have war games around the Strait of Taiwan against the Taiwanese citizens. Yes, there's all the other countries. They've had tit for tat for India. They are no angels in the world politics stage. They even have Canadian police stations, and Chinese police operate in Canada rounding up dissidents of China. Remember, folks, in the last election, I think his name was Joy Tay, he had to step out of the race as a progressive conservative candidate because China has a bounty on him, and the person that was a liberal candidate who had to step down for those comments, even though the conservative candidate was told, you better stand down by the RCMP, the other liberal candidate, well, he said some bad things and he had to be removed. Who stepped into his place? None other than Michael Ma. And where is Ma now? He went to with Carney to China to discuss whatever it is in Beijing for 5 days. The Chinese ambassador is not being very honest or hopeful, to the world, other than to say you must work with China and all that. I mean, I am a little bit elaborating here, and I wish I had a bit more to say on that. I did in my mind, but anyways, let's just move on, folks. I will say this: Trump's speech was good. Carney's speech was the best he ever given, misguided in my opinion as a Canadian. I do not know why we would want to go away from the world's longest freestanding border, trade, the whole 9 yards. We have it so good up here as Canadians, having the Americans on our border. Yes, 9/11 happened, and what did we do with all those people that were stuck in airplanes and everything else? As good Canadians, we took them in, sheltered them, and helped them. But remember, folks, when there was a hijacked airplane in Vancouver Airport, it may have been a small Cessna, but this person was, and for lack of better wording, he was an eco-terrorist Muslim who wanted to make the world better for Allah by slamming a plane into something to make awareness for Mother Earth or something. It's weird. Guy was a bit cuckoo, but nonetheless, we have a Air Force in Cold Lake, Alberta. It could not get a fighter jet up in time. We had to rely on NORAD and the Americans with their jets to calmly put this plane back down on the ground without an incident. Remember the balloon that went across the sky, folks? Canada did not have anything to reach the ceiling height to actually shoot the frickin' balloon from China. It was the Americans that did that. And you have to ask yourself something here, folks, because this is, I want you to think. The Americans knew when this balloon was launched from China, basically, they allowed it to go across the airspace of North America unhindered until somebody noticed, and then they said they noticed. But in all retrospect, they knew it was there. They monitored it with our equipment, and I shouldn't say ours like ours, but the American equipment, and they monitored it while it traveled to see what kind of information it was getting and where it was sending it to. Remember what I said about Trump in his speech? We said, I'm not allowed to talk about a lot of technologies that exist that we have in warring or even spy and espionage. Yes, folks, I think the Americans are a little bit ahead of the game because I just found this out the other day. As impressive as the Chinese have made their stealth fighter, it can only last in the air for 7 minutes. Now, that's not going to make it to North America to do anything. That's not going to even last out in the ocean if they're going to use their aircraft carriers. The Americans, by their launching speeds of the aircraft, I can honestly tell you that the sorties is almost like 4-to-1 ratio compared to the Chinese. So, yeah, careful what you wish for, China. And I will say that. I don't think anybody is going to try and overtake America by actually physically going to America. What we have is a warfare that is using, believe it or not, drugs. Yes, fentanyl, cocaine. The Chinese are in bed with the narco states around South America and Mexico, probably with connections into Europe and all that, and the British banking system and the Canadian banking system all intertwined. If you know a fellow by the name of Sam Cooper, shout out to my mom for reading that book. I'm glad you did. Opened your eyes. I hope your eyes open up some more and all that. But we as Canadian citizens need to do more, folks. We need to do more, be aware more, read more, and question our government more before the government shuts us down. There are certain legislation things going on in our House of Commons that are basically trying to censor our freedom of speech. Me speaking at this moment with the laws that they currently want to try and put on the books means, as of today, after the laws are passed, if they are passed retroactively, somebody within the Canadian government who's not even voted in, who was handpicked by a cabinet minister, can decide to shut me down with the click of a button. That's how much they want it done. What that means is that I will no longer access the internet, which means I'll have to physically go to my bank and actually do any kind of banking instead of online. Quite possibly, it ends me for communications almost, because most of my communications are through the internet. Yes, I have a dumb phone, and more people, honest to God, I want you all to get a dumb phone. Get away from the smart little phones. You want a smart thing, get a smart tablet without phone capabilities, because you do not want to encourage this government anymore. And you let me see your papers, right? Like, let's see your phone for your ID. It's coming. It is coming so rapidly that I fear it the most, because it's going to restrict us, like I see how it restricts citizens in China with their social credit score. And it exists. It is true. And I've seen it, I've read it, and I even went and saw the rebuttal to these arguments. It is there, it exists, and the people that run the WEF, which I mentioned earlier, where Carney spoke, where Trump spoke, where Harry Lutnick spoke, where Francois Champagne, the Minister of Finance for Canada, where, yeah, let's go to Rebel News for a second here. Yes, thank you for my brain for remembering. Rebel News is in Davos. I saw Ezra Levant talking to Justin Trudeau, who feels that he owes no Canadians an apology, even though our top courts, folks, our top courts have stated that our government misused the Emergency Use Act and they did it unlawfully. Chrystia Freeland, same answer. If you have not seen those videos, I highly recommend you go to Rebel News and look up Ursula Laurent's videos on our former finance minister and former prime minister. They are great, great questions and all that. I am blocked by Ezra Levant, believe it or not, on X, because I asked him where the money went for what he raised for the Coots 4. That's his business. That's fine by him. But I do like what he did here, and I'm willing to give him a shout out, despite him, not me liking me asking, where is the money that you raised for the Coots 4? Remember, folks, the Emergency Use Act is deemed unlawful, and yet we have a person in jail, Olenek. He is the last remaining of the Coots 4 still in jail. If the Emergency Use Act was illegal, this person should be released ASAP. Everybody that had their bank account frozen by the government, and get this, folks, the person who basically kickstarted the whole idea was Mark Carney, and he wrote an op-ed, and I think the National, I guess. We'll just leave it at that. Don't quote me on it. I'm just a dude in a house coat, like to read and everything else. I don't have a teleprompter in front of me so I can actually, say something, right? I'm going off the top of my head. But folks, yes, he wrote an op-ed about a week before saying we should start freezing bank accounts. Mr. Carney is not a true blue capitalist person. He is a communist socialist person. After reading his book Values, I believe it more now than ever. Yes, I do. Free market has solved more issues in this world. capitalism and competitiveness and design upgrades and everything else than any government that tried to control every aspect of a human's life. The Soviet Union collapsed for a reason. That's one of them. Oh, yes, folks. It is what? Oh, 29 minutes. Yes. I know I wanted to talk a lot about stuff, Davos, I did, and all that. Well, let's just touch on Greenland, folks. As of today, waking up and everything else, America kind of got what it wanted out of Greenland, and yet our country, government, and everybody else, the EU, the likes of Macron, all that, trying to say we're going to send troops there to defend NATO and all this and stuff like that. If America tries to land troops in NATO in Greenland, we're gonna announce Article 5 in the NATO agreement, which means, we are at war with somebody. But if you read the fine print of the NATO agreement, folks, which I have, and I think you should too, don't listen to David Cochran or Rosie O'Barton fill you in on half lies, black truths, and stuff like that. White lies and black truth. That's better. Sorry, not half lies. White lies and black truth. Yes, another country in NATO can attack another country in NATO as we speak. But all the other nations that are involved in NATO can make up their own mind of what they were willing to do. But what makes this all funny, folks, is that the people that are claiming that they will defend Greenland from America are forgetting where they get most of their ammunition from. America. I know you can't make this stuff up, but if you keep listening to the media and the way that they're gaslighting you into thinking that if Orange Man bad, this and that, he's going to turn it into a resource colony, he's going to do this, put hotels on it, like Bob Ray says. No, it is for North American security, and thankfully it has been settled in a way that America is going to have their bases back in Greenland. They're going to set up the Golden Dome in Greenland, which is good news for Canada. We get another freebie defense from the Americans again, which will allow them to shoot the missiles over the Arctic before they hit Canada. It also probably saves us from being annexed by the United States because they want to protect the Western Hemisphere as America's interest, and it involves Canada. And if we allow China to keep pushing the door into Canada, we are going to be annexed sooner than later. I truly believe that. I do not think the Americans will allow any foreign adversary to try and have a foothold in America. The free trade deal that we have with the Chinese regarding EVs is going to end up going to the States, and I don't think the States are going to allow that. I think the upcoming negotiations, and mark my word, for Kuzma is going to be very detrimental for Canada. The likes of Doug Ford, Mark Carney's comments at the World Economic Forum thing, downplaying any kind of trade negotiation with the States up to this point, trying to make it claim that he's doing things elsewhere, like making the claim at the World Economic Forum that Canada, and I think 4 or 7 of the Nordic countries combined for 20% of the world's GDP. That is categorically false. It is way lower than that, but he likes to make up stuff. He's a plagiarist. Yes, he is, folks. You'll have to dive that down yourself and all that, folks. And yes, I've been talking for over half an hour. I wanted to try and get my stuff in for Greenland in there for a bit. I had a list. I wanted to talk about a lot of things. I hope you enjoyed what I talked about. I hope you can leave a comment, a like. I hope I encourage you to read more and not accept the clickbait thing. If I'm wrong on anything, please let me know in the comments. Happy to look up any information you may think is relevant to what I have to say. After all, I'm just a dude in the house coat, just as truth. I enjoy reading. I can't absorb everything out there in the world, but I can tell you this, is that you're being misled by our mainstream media, and it's got to stop, especially in Canada, because it's our tax dollars being paid to lie to us. Anyways, folks, remember that scone. I'd like to make a sad note at the end of the show. My cousin-in-law, so to speak, passed away the other night. We had wonderful Northern Light. My Danica, my lovely wife, would say she gave us one last painting. And that, I guess she did. And anyways, shout out to Shauna and her brother. I am so sorry for your loss, Richard. and everything else like that. I don't really want to end it on a sad note, but also remember, folks, if you haven't been to an SPCA, at least go once in your life. You don't have to adopt, but go see what they do. Positive vibes and take care.